Now, I want to ask you a couple of questions. That is, if you're kind of interested in getting on a winning course with your life. I believe, and our thesis tonight is that you and I can be winners.
Hello again, everybody. This is Heartbeat, the podcast, featuring insight and teaching from the more than 50 years of work done by Landon Saunders. On today's episode, Landon is visiting with a workshop audience, and the topic is, how do we win as a human being? Once again, here's Landon Saunders.
I don't care where you are tonight. I don't care what your mistakes have been. I don't care how much failure in your past. I'm going to tell you a way tonight that I would absolutely guarantee will ensure your life of being a winning life. And everybody can get hold of it. I don't care what your age is, how old you are, or how young you are. I don't care if you're in a good job or a bad job, if you've got good relationships or bad relationships. We're going to tell you a way tonight that you can win and guarantee it. Now, if you were going to be a winner as a human being, what would you have to do? How do you win as a person? You see, in the Super Bowl, you know what to do to win. And if you're in a poker game, you know what to do to win. Now, you may not always win, but you know where the victory is and where the victory's not. And the same thing is true of a beauty contest. The same thing is true of a basketball game. The same thing is true of a baseball game, that you know what the victory is, and you know whether you have gained the victory or not. But do you have that kind of information for your life? You see, I have a feeling that if we knew what the victory was, that we could probably get up every morning and go about winning that victory. But if we don't know what the victory is, we'll just kind of live out our days and we'll survive. You know, it is so critical to know what that victory is, because if you don't know what the victory is, you're liable to spend most of your life fighting the wrong battle. And yet, for all of that, for all the uncertainty and for all the vagueness, I've noticed two things about human beings. The first one is that not many human beings ever think that they're winning. Not many. But even more curiously and more astonishing is the fact that in spite of the fact that not many people feel like they're winning, very few ever give up. There's something about this thing that we call a human, this that we call a person. There's something about us that is tough. There is something about us that is resilient, that is flexible. There is something about us that is courageous, right in the face of 1,000 defeats. And no matter how many turns of the road we may have missed in our journey this far, there's something about us that keeps getting us up, even if a little later in the morning. It keeps getting us up every day, and we keep reaching out our hands, and we keep looking, and we keep running through the newspaper, and we keep looking for feeling good about yourself ads, and we keep trying all these different things. Why? Because, listen, every one of us tonight, there's one thing we want to do, and that is we want to win. You know that if you looked at human history, do you know that you would find that most governments spent most of their existence battling for the wrong things? Most of them do. And do you know, even a more curious fact tonight is that most religions today are battling for the wrong thing. Now, you'd think religion wouldn't do that. Now, in your life and in mine, are we making that mistake? Sometimes I look up and I say, Landon, you know, you're growing older. I'm 42 now. 2 years ago, I crossed that 40th birthday line. Then my 41st came around, and then my 42nd one came around. And how do you feel about getting older? Now listen, the secret of getting older is knowing what the victory is. Now, what I want to give you now is the 5 tests to tell if you're winning or losing as a human being. You may want to write these down. The 5 tests to tell if you're winning or losing as a human being. You're going to like these, but they're going to be tough. I'm going to warn you. I'm going to list these 5 tests, and then I'm going to go back through them, and I'm going to raise a possibility. Here are the 5 tests to which you can put to your life to see if you're winning or losing as a human being. Here's number one. That whatever it is that would ensure your success or your winning as a human being, it must be something that circumstances cannot destroy. Something that circumstances cannot destroy. If your life and my life, if we are vulnerable to circumstances, to illness, to disaster, to financial loss, to catastrophe, to a broken relationship, to rejection, to whatever are the almost infinite number of possibilities of circumstances that can happen to us, if your victory is conditioned on a certain set of circumstances, I don't think you've got the right victory. Number two, test number two, that to win as a person, you must have something that death cannot destroy. Now that's going to be a little heavy, but just hang with it. We can lift out some of these heavy things because we've got something to say about them. Something that death can't destroy. That if you have to get up every day afraid that a Big Mac truck's going to run you down when you cross the road, or some doctor's going to look at you and say 6 months, if you have to live with that fear every day, listen, you and I can define our lives in such a way that death has no power over our victory. We win if we die today. We win if we die 10 days from now, or 10 years from now, or 100 years from now. We still win as a person. Any time death comes, you just look it in the eye and say, ha, 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 I'm a winner. To win as a human being, you've got to have your life defined in such a way that death really can't destroy what it is that you live for. Number three, to win as a person, you have to be living for something that you'd be willing to die for. Something you'd be willing to die for. What would you be willing to die for? And the fourth one is that to win as a person, you must be giving your life to something that will enhance or beautify every relationship that you have. Whatever it is, it must enhance, it must beautify, it must strengthen every other relationship that you have. Boy, isn't it exciting to think about even that being a possibility? And the fifth test is that you must be giving your life to something that will guarantee that you will improve every day for the rest of your life. That you don't wind up at 60 years old or 62 years old or 65 years old and retiring and wondering what in the world you're going to do. Listen, your main goal in life, retirement has nothing to do with. That if you know what you're living for, when you retire, instead of it cutting back and diminishing your life, listen, let me tell you, that's the time when you'll probably experience the greatest freedom. That if we define our lives, you see, simply in terms of a job, or simply in terms of some kind of accomplishment that we can win a trophy for and put that trophy on the shelf, listen, boy, how vulnerable we are. Now, those are the 5 tests. Now, what qualifies? What could you be getting up for every day that would meet those 5 tests? I know this, that if we could answer that it will put life in a perspective that nothing else can ever quite put it. Okay, let me tell you what I believe will meet the test, and then I want to tell you why I believe it meets the test. This is going to be so simple that you'll probably stone me off the stage for saying it. People. People. Now just think about it. People. A person. Human beings. Let's go back over and see if it works. That first one that you have there, something that circumstances can't destroy. Do you know that we can have relationships with people if we're fighting for people every day that we live? If we're going after people, and if we're loving people, if we're loving our neighbor, and we're loving ourselves, do you know that there is nothing that can happen to you that can make you lose. Circumstances. I love Napoleon's line. Napoleon said, circumstances, I make circumstances. And I think that is the way that human beings really ought to be. Listen, go for people, and you can't think of circumstances that can do you in. Secondly, that not even death can destroy. Now, does death destroy relationships? Does death have any power over relationship? Have you lost anyone lately? How much remains? How much stays? Death can change. Death can alter. But listen, the person who is held in relationship by people, that person is secure even when death comes. That relationships are stronger than death is. Relationships will work in the presence of death long after money has done all that it can do. Long after doctors have done all that they can do. Your last bastion of security is whether or not you have lived for people. If you've lived for people, people will be there, and they'll hold you, and they'll love you, and they'll support you. If everything else failed, isn't it true that that is the best insurance that a human being can ever have in this world, is to be certain that they are in relationship with people. They've battled and they've fought and they've loved people. And that third one, something that you'd be willing to die for. What would you die for? What would you give your life for? There are young men who give their lives for people in their country, for their parents and for their brothers and for their sisters. There are not many things that a human being will die for, but human beings will die for a person. Remember that story of the little boy who was 5 years old, whose sister was very, very ill with, I believe, some kind of a kidney disease? And her only hope was that all of her blood would have to be removed and replaced. And the only one that qualified was her little 5-year-old brother. And so the doctor went to the little brother, and the parents went to the little brother, and he agreed to give his sister his blood. And after all the transfusions had taken place, the doctor came in and said to the little boy, "Now that didn't hurt much, did it?" And the little boy looked up and said, "When do I die? When do I die?" His sister was worth it. We're underestimating the value of people. And we're battling for the wrong things. And we're tearing up relationships. And we are destroying relationships. We are breaking up and destroying our homes because we have defined our lives for the wrong victory. What matters if you win? What matters if you gain those little things that you're going after? How can you ever say that you've won if it cost you your own flesh and blood? And then it's something that will guarantee improvement until the day that you die. Boy, I like the story of a man that I know whose mother is 92 years old, and she decided to put a new carpet on her apartment and insisted on a 30-year guarantee. Boy, she's got something going right in her life. Now, if persons are the thing that you really go for, then does that really work? Listen, if you are winning with people, I'm telling you, you're winning on your job. If you're losing with people, let me tell you, you are losing with your job. I don't care if you've gotten 10 promotions, you're a loser. Nobody wins on a job, and nobody wins with money, and nobody wins with beauty, and nobody wins with fame if they're a loser when it comes to people. Isn't that right? Listen, if you're getting up every day and ensuring the goodness and the value of the human lives that you meet every day, then you don't have to tell me anything more. You are in the direction of a winning life. You just are. People, that's where it is. That's where it's at. Now, but you say, don't people die? And wouldn't that be defeat? And the answer, of course, is, yeah, people die. Well, is that defeat? Well, I don't think so. I think that knowing that we're going to die actually helps us out. because it certainly helps you sort out priorities if you know you're going to die. If you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, it'd certainly affect the way you live today. And if I knew I was going to die tomorrow, I'd hate to spend today worrying about it. Boy, I'd love to have a party.
This podcast is produced and made possible by Friends of Heartbeat, who invite you to visit the website thisisheartbeat.com, where you'll find information and additional materials that are available from Landon Saunders. If you enjoyed today's content, please rate and follow the podcast wherever you get your material. It really helps the podcast as other people are looking for this kind of information. We hope you'll join us again next time. And until then, this is Heartbeat, the podcast.